Over the last 13 or 14 years, I've literally spoken to thousands of investors, and one of the most common questions I like to ask them to learn as much as possible is how they got to where they are right now. Now, in today's video, Simon and I are going to have a little bit of fun talking about how we both built $1 million property portfolios in the last 10 years, sharing some of the tips, tricks and war stories on our journey to financial freedom and financial peace. Sweet bro, so we were having a bit of a laugh about this one off camera a minute ago, but where'd this all start for you? Like, how have you gone from basically $0 in the bank and a uni student not that long ago to where you are right now?
I wish I had $0 in the bank. I actually had minus dollars in the bank while I was at university, paying off silly credit card debt from when I went traveling overseas. The things that you do when you're in your early 20s, right? But for me, it was like a bit of a slow process because I'd seen what you'd done, I'd seen what Crystal had done, and I'd seen the successes that Mum had done through property investing as well. And so before I had the money, I had the sort of insight and the desire to get into property. So it took a bit of time to build up that savings, get rid of the bad debt, obviously, and then it was as simple as like once I had enough money there to pay for like a 5% deposit down on a property, which I know like most people would just be overwhelmed about that. But, I was willing to take on that risk and go for 95% lending. So talk to a mortgage broker. I'm like, can I get a loan for 95% on this property? And he's like, it's risky, but you can do it. So I literally just, as soon as I was in a position where I had enough money to pay for like the closing costs and the deposit plus a loan, I just jumped right in and bought that first property, not really knowing how it was going to unfold or how I was going to get to any other properties after that first one. I really just was super focused on getting the one done and dusted, and that took a lot of time and energy. And then once I'd completed the purchase, my whole process was like, let's let the dust settle. Like, let's appreciate what I've just done, because it had been a long time from when I'd set the intention for buying a property to when I'd actually settled on it and got some tenants into the property. And like in that in-between period, there was a lot that changed inside myself, and it didn't feel too different when I settled on the property. So I was just like, take a step back, let the dust settle, get used to holding a mortgage, get used to managing some tenants, get used to becoming a property investor, and then reevaluate after that time.
Awesome, bro. I think I was out on a few of those weekends with you when you were celebrating this property and having a real good time. So what happened after that? Like, obviously, you and I weren't born into like cash or anything. Yeah. So you had to physically save that first deposit, and that took you to almost zero. And then you had to do the same thing again. So what was that decision point where most people, especially in their early 20s, I think you were 25 when you bought that, would just sit and go, look, I'm doing better than my mates. What made you want to, immediately start saving again and go again?
Just having a little bit of a laugh with inside myself there as well, because like, I don't really compare myself to anybody else, and I'm not the kind of guy that's like doing things for status. Like, I do it for myself, and like if I'm competing with anyone, I'm competing with you. Like, we are brothers.
Sorry for you there, bro.
I'm never going to catch up. But like, just having a bit of a laugh, like, I've seen what you've done. It's like, I don't mean to try and compete, and I don't mean to do that, but it's just like, from when I was like 4 years of age, we've been competing, kicking the soccer ball, skating, surfing, whatever it might be. And it was just
Tell you what, you're ripping me on the surfboard these days. I'm like, Simon's got a surf coach and he's surfing so good. I'm like, no, it's over. I just got to get in the water, but I've lost.
But at the end of the day, like, the intention wasn't to like become a millionaire or anything like that. The intention was to like buy these properties to develop a passive income. So I had choices and freedom at an earlier stage of life. So once I got the first property, you sort of think that that's going to be enough, but then you reset the goalposts like we're very good at doing in the Western world. And I'm like, all right, back into savings mode, delaying that gratification, paying myself first, building the deposit, doing the exact same things I did to buy the first property for the second property. And then once I was in a position to borrow enough money from the banks to get a quality property, because I didn't want to go buy something average. I wanted a house. I wanted it to be in Brisbane. I wanted it to be on a big piece of land. So there was other investments that I could have looked at that were cheaper, but I took a little bit more time to get into like the quality asset, which I think has helped in generating a quicker return on investment for me to get to that sort of multi-million dollar portfolio. But for me, it was less of an intention to become a millionaire through property investing, but more of an intention to develop a passive income through property investing, which is something that you found as well. Because I know early in your journey, it was more about like the number of properties, the net worth and things. And then obviously that changed for you as well. So like, what happened there for you to go, I want a certain amount of properties, I want a certain amount of net worth, to then being like, actually, I want passive income from these properties?
I think it was when I started to have kids and I realized that I couldn't eat equity and that my dream of being free, which I thought I was well on the way to, was a fucking illusion. And I was going to be like wealthy, I suppose you could call it, at like 65 or 70 if I kept them all. But I was going to have to work my bum off to pay off all of that debt on properties that weren't the best assets in the best locations and following the practice or the best practice we follow now.
It's interesting how our values and priorities change over time with more experience. And I've seen that happen many, many times for yourself. So for you, like, what changed from the beginning of your journey to where you're at right now, and how you perceive your sort of financial situation and property portfolio?
To be fully honest, when I started out, I had no idea what I was doing. Like, absolutely zero idea. There was no blogs, YouTube videos. There was no good books outside of these like old people that had balled in a time when money was really easy to get. And so I just made the best decisions I possibly could. And like you, I had no plan. I had no strategy at that point. It was just save money. As soon as I had a deposit and the banks would lend me money, go buy something. And the goal at the time, because all of the books were like 0 to 10 properties in 10 years, was just to buy as many as possible without any real strategy or plan, and hope that it worked out. Yeah, I'm so lucky that it was after the GFC and not going into it, because thankfully, like, I was looked after. Every single thing after a GFC that someone buys turns to gold until it doesn't and we're in the next GFC. So I really had no idea what I was doing, as crazy as this is to say, until I'd bought 9 properties.
Wow.
And then I'm pretty sure at that point we were working together, and I was like, I feel like all of a sudden I realized that I was missing time with my family, and I wasn't happy at that point in my life either. Like, I had a lot of anxiety from all of that action that I was going through. And I sort of went through like a bit of a black night of the soul moment, where it's like, I'm not living my best and authentic self here, and I'm doing a lot of stuff that my younger version said that I don't even care about anymore. And so I went through this reset where we literally like cut the business in half. We sold a different business that we're running, a property management one. And I actually went from 9 properties that I'd bought from the start to 2, one of them being my own home. And I reset my whole portfolio. And I don't encourage people to do that, because it will have a massive impact on tax. It will have a massive impact on your wealth position and your mental health to go through that. But for me, I'm like, I'm serious about this now. And we started to learn about, well, what has happened in the last 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, 500 years, what types of markets work, what types of suburbs, what types of assets, and what type of investor do we want to be? And you and I decided that, owning properties that are worth $1 million plus is cool, but it means nothing. What matters though is like sleeping well at night, living your values day to day. And for you and I, we pivoted on our portfolios to buying assets that could produce $150,000, maybe even $200,000 a year of passive income in 15 to 20 years into the future. And so that was a huge change, a massive amount of work for me. And since then, I've gone on to a bunch more properties and sold a whole bunch of them on the journey too.
Yeah.
But it's been the most incredible thing that I've ever done. Knowing what I want, reverse engineering a plan on how to get there, and then just shedding my old self and going, that little shit at 2020 or at 24 that wanted to build an empire and that was taking my rent out of the bank every Friday night and going and blowing it at the pub with the boys until it was all gone. That little dude that only knew himself, that just wanted more, it was never going to be enough and I'd never be satisfied, just dissolved, and a person that wants to help other people came out of that.
It's really interesting. I hear a few different things in that story as well, and it's just in this society, in this world, like people, I think, believe that like more is better, or more is going to give them more freedom, more is going to give them more choices. But like, you know, even though you had made those mistakes and you were sort of a little bit unconscious back then, you were still conscious enough to go, this isn't serving me, this isn't doing what I actually wanted to do. And I think it's really important to be aware of that ambition that we all have as property investors, and that like growth mindset, thinking that like I need to do more. And it's like, sometimes you do have to take a step back to take a step forward, and that's okay. You know, I talked to these people in a strategy session recently where they were talking about like what they need to do next, but you know, they were already in such a strong financial situation. They'd already had everything that they needed to achieve their goals, and like they just needed me to go like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you doing more? Like, you don't need to. Like, is it an ego thing? And I'd like call them out on their mindset, and they're like, you know what, like we've got young kids, we want to spend more time with them, and like another property is going to actually force us to work more, not have more choices and more freedom. And I think changing it from like buying generating $1 million worth of net worth or whatever it might be, like that asset goal, it's like that can keep you indoctrinated into the system of just working so hard and not having that freedom. It's like, if you can change your perspective to more cash flow focused, quality over quantity, how do I get a passive income? How do I get my work week down to 5 days a week if you're working 6, or 4 days a week if you're working 5, and have more time to do the things that you love doing and have the time to spend with the people that you love. And it's like, that's where we come from. It's like, we come from a place of like, we're doing this to create more freedom and choice in our life. And you've got to be really conscious about the decisions that you make and the assets that you buy to make sure that it's moving you towards that goal as opposed to further away, which I see so many people talking to so many investors that are pulling themselves away from where they want to be because they've just got the wrong mentality.
You know, I love that. And if I was starting all of this again, like I would keep it so simple. And we've done other videos on this. One's the 2 properties to financial freedom strategy. The other is the 3 properties. And you can find them on our podcast or our YouTube channel. But effectively, that simple idea is just 3 steps. Like, number 1, accumulation, which is where you buy the properties that will make you free. If you want to do this well, then 2 properties should get you to $100,000 per year of passive income in 15 years' time. If you buy a simple high quality home and a simple house and a granny flat for the second one, then there's the second step where you slowly pay off the debt, where Simon and I are both in at the moment, and add value to those properties that you own. That could be knocking down, renovating, adding granny flats, subdividing, or just like tidying them up a little bit to increase the rent. And then you move to the third phase, which is choices and freedom, which is what, you know, no matter how much wealth you create or passive income you create or money you earn from your job, at the end of the day, it's like, well, what are you going to do with that? And for me, it's like living my values on a day-to-day basis and then being able to help other people. And what I really encourage you guys to do is to think about, well, what if you didn't have to work in the future because you created wealth and freedom through property? And how could you use those skills to like serve the world and make other people's lives better, pull up your kids and your friends and your family and your colleagues so that like they see some hope in the future and a different sort of light in the future where they can be moving towards something as well. And that's what it's all about. But my question for you, Simon, is like looking at everything you know now, for the people that are in our position now or the people that are just starting out, like, what would your advice to your younger self be, knowing everything you know now on your journey to becoming a millionaire?
For me, the advice would be in relation to like building the right habits, the right beliefs, and the right mindset that you need to become a property investor and to actually become a millionaire through property investing as well. So, you know, being aware of the things that actually create more anxiety in your life and more stress in your life, and the decisions that can be difficult to make, so that when those difficult emotions come up, you can actually move through them in the right way. You know, educate yourself, listen to the YouTube videos, listen to the podcasts, read the books that are going to teach you more about what you don't know right now, so you can, you know, see the blind spots in yourself. And then it's surrounding yourself with a community of like-minded people and some mentors and coaches that can, act as a soundboard to you so you can talk with them about what it is that you want to do. And hopefully that's somebody that's already been through what you're about to go through, so they can give you some advice and point you in the right direction so you can avoid making the mistakes that other people have. Similar to how you've been in my life, like you go out and make all the mistakes so that I can just come through and avoid having to make them.
For sure. And that's what it's about. Before I did it, I had a bunch of people like myself that had fucked up big time, and I was able to stand on their shoulders and see further than I could have on my own. And Simon's doing that for all of our family and friends now, and all of you guys. And when you guys talk to us and we find little tips and tricks that you're doing that are working, we get to share that back. And I think that's a big part of what it's all about for both of us. So for those of you out there who are seriously looking to change your stars and begin or continue your journey to financial freedom and financial peace, then Simon and I would love to offer you a one-on-one strategy session. Just jump over to www.pumkedonproperty.com, click that free strategy session button, and we can talk about where you are right now, where you'd like to be longer term. We can educate you on the market and some of the lessons that we've learned over the years, and then you can take that information and go and absolutely smash it on your own, or potentially become one of the extremely small number of clients that we work with each week. But either way, we absolutely wish you all the best on your journey to financial freedom and financial peace in your life.
Woo! That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Getting cool, bro. Yeah.
Oh, sweaty. So sweaty. Oh, that's good. That's so nice. Eh? Oh.